All right. Good morning, sports investors. How you doing today? Fame Rothstein here, Fame Rothstein Sports Investing Show. Link to the podcast that you can find on Thursdays through Tuesdays is in the bio, all right? But we have a special guest here with us on YouTube, the YouTube edition. It is Bridget Kelly. She is a local politician from Cincinnati who is in our favor, okay? But I'll let her introduce herself and everything. Go ahead, Ms. Kelly.
Good morning. My name is Bridget Kelly. I'm the state representative for the 31st House District, which includes about 17 neighborhoods between Northside and Amberley Village. I'm in my third term in the House, and throughout my second term and in the beginning of our third term, we've been working on legalizing sports gaming in the state of Ohio.
Yes, ma'am. Now we have a Ohio primary coming up in 2 weeks. Are you involved in the primary?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
Nope, the state reps are up in even numbered years, so this is an off year for us.
Okay, so Representative Kelly, tell us, you sponsored House Bill 194. That was the last time that there was a bill trying to legalize sports gaming, sports wagering, what we call on this show sports investing. But that was the last time that someone tried to get it passed here in Ohio. Tell us the status of that and the status of, the whole thing in general.
I'm going to take you on a journey. Hopefully I'll keep it short and on not too much of a winding road. But former Representative Dave Greenspan and I worked on House Bill 194, which was to legalize sports betting in the 133rd General Assembly, which was last term. And so the way that legislation works is, if it doesn't get all the way through the process, introduced in the House, through committee, voted on the House floor, moved over to the Senate, through Senate committee, voted on the Senate floor, and signed by the governor, all in the space of just 2 years, then that legislation dies and we have to start all over again. So House Bill 194 made it through the House. There was another bill to legalize sports investing in the Senate, and that was sponsored by then Senators John Eklund and Sean O'Brien. And so former Representative Greenspan and I worked with them over the course of last summer and last fall to try to align those two bills as much as possible to give it what we thought to be the best shot at passing, because your listeners know that every day we don't legalize sports gaming in Ohio means that more people are turning to the black market, more people are spending their money out of state, and the state of Ohio is losing money. So we wanted to give it the best shot at passing, but we were not successful in that. So the legislation died. And so here we are now, and we're starting all over again. And 3 of the 4 primary sponsors are no longer serving in the legislature, which adds another layer of complications to things. So I am the only primary sponsor who is still serving in the legislature.
Oh, wow. So what, are reps term limited?
We are term limited. So one of the folks was term limited. 2 others did not prevail in their elections. So they're not serving anymore for a number of reasons. But state reps and state senators are both term limited to 8 years. So for state reps, 4 2-year terms, and for state senators, 2 4-year terms.
Wow. Okay. What? So the bill basically has to be reintroduced.
Correct. So
from start to finish.
A bill has to be reintroduced. And so I'm working together with Representative Jay Edwards in the House to try to come up with a draft. In the Senate, they took a little bit of a different tack, and they started at the beginning of the year they created a select committee on gaming that would deal not just with sports wagering, but also with e-bingo, iLottery, and other issues that are affiliated with gaming more broadly. And what they did is they had interested parties come in and talk about what was important to them, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see included in a bill, what they would not like to see included in a bill. And so they concluded that, I think earlier in the month, either earlier in April or at the end of March. And to my understanding, they're also in the process of drafting a bill.
Okay, now who's your co-sponsor this time?
Jay Edwards from
Yeah,
Southeast
where's he out
Ohio.
of?
He's from Southeast Ohio, Athens area.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So
but, you know, like here in Cincinnati, we know that folks are going across the river to Indiana to bet on sports if they want to do it legally. We know that folks are, you know, have a guy or are doing it using other illegal means. But in the case of Rep. Edwards, you know, his folks can go across a bridge to West Virginia. And if they want to legally bet on sports, they can do it there. And so Ohio is surrounded. Pennsylvania has legalized sports gaming. Michigan has legalized sports gaming. So we really are an island. And it's disappointing because we had a chance to be a leader. And now we're looking to be either probably solidly in the middle, which is okay. But, you know, we think we're just leaving resources on the table when we don't need to.
oh wow. So what have you guys done any type of actuarials about, you know, the prediction of how much money may have been lost to other states?
Well, I don't know that. We do think that sports gaming will bring in about $30 million a year to the state of Ohio or more. It's one of those things where it can be a little bit difficult to predict, and it depends on what the tax rate will be, which is something that's still being negotiated. So obviously the higher the tax rate is, the more money for the state. The lower the tax rate is, the less money for the state. But I think the one thing that's important in this is that the consumer's not paying the tax. The tax is paid for by, you know, in this case, it would be the casino operators. And so again, it incentivizes folks to play legally in a way where it is safe for consumers, it benefits the state, and it also protects the integrity of the game because it's easier to monitor fluctuations and find anything, you know, that might not look exactly right.
Exactly. Yeah. So 30 million, like how much is that, or if any, is like going to be earmarked for schools? Do you all think?
Well, in the previous iteration of the bill, the money would go to a sports betting fund for education, which would be primarily invested in extracurricular activities for kids. So sports, art, debate, music. We know that kids in our communities sometimes are limited by pay to play in access for their extracurriculars and in, you know, things that they're passionate about. And so we really wanted to take away as many of those barriers as possible in a thoughtful way.
Absolutely. And you know what I find most impressive about this is that I believe you told me is, I know you told me as well, and I did some research, only 7% of all sports bettors are female. And the leader in this initiative in Ohio is a female. So, I mean, how does that, you know, make some, go ahead, you know, celebrate that. How you feel about that and whatnot?
Well, you know, when I first ran for office, I did not expect that this would be something that I would be spending so much time on. But one of the things that my constituents said was important to them was to have strong communities and good schools for their kids. And so to me, it is about ensuring that we have as many resources as possible to invest in our kids, to provide as many consumer protections as possible, and you know, to make sure that Ohio is not leaving any money on the table when it comes to new and emerging industries. I will say that I have learned a lot about sports wagering, investing, betting throughout this process, and because there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, particularly, you know, when it comes to policy. Who's going to regulate it? How do you make sure people are on the up and up? What's the tax going to be? How do you make sure you limit anonymized betting so that you can do this in a responsible way? What are you doing to make sure that you are helping to provide resources for people who might have trouble with problem gaming? You know, how many skins are you going to have? How deep in the weeds are you going to go? What kind of rules are you going to leave to the regulating body? And so it has been, it's been a great learning experience, but this is something that folks are really interested in, and I think eager for the legislature to pass.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So did it get through the House the first time? Was it convincing?
It got all the way through the House. It was an overwhelmingly favorable vote. We did make some changes as a result of the negotiations with the Senate because there were a few differences when we started out. So we literally took the two bills and went through all of the differences and said, okay, the House version says this, the Senate version says that. Do we want to pick one? Do we want to meet somewhere in the middle? How do we want to manage this so that we could get it to a place where both the House and Senate were working off the same document? So everything from regulator to tax rate to where the money was going to go. And it was an arduous process, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you mentioned regulating. I heard that was one of the kind of the hangups. The Ohio Lottery Commission wanted to be a part of the regulation as well as other bodies. I mean, you don't necessarily have to give where you stand on that if you don't want, but just kind of talk us through that process of how important that is.
So previously, you know, in our as introduced version, the lottery was the regulator, but we got additional legal opinions that said it would be legal, it would be constitutional for the Casino Control Commission to regulate it, which was what the Senate had put out in its previous version and what the governor had said that he preferred, because the Casino Control Commission is used to regulating casino games, which, you know, should be highly regulated and, you know, shouldn't be terribly easy to access, in my opinion. You know, there should be some steps you have to take if you want to engage in gambling. So we ended up on the Casino Control Commission. Some of the additional questions come from, you know, in our bill, we said casinos, racinos, mobile, because the majority of betting, I'm sure as you know, is done on mobile, 90%, and 70% is done on in-game bets. So not on, you know, who's going to win or lose, what's going to be the over under. And so some of the question is, you know, where else might there be interest in this being offered? And so that's part of the conversation too, of, you know, do we want this in every, you know, restaurant, bar, grocer, gas station, etc.? And if so, what would that look like, and how would we do that? And if so, if those are lottery partners, then do we set up a parallel sort of regulatory agency? Because you can't have the Casino Control Commission with one set of rules, the Lottery Commission with another, because, you know, we want to make sure that we are consistent, no matter where folks are choosing to invest.
Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. Let me ask you this: what do you think is the biggest current hangup to its passage?
I think there are a few challenges. You know, there's a lot of interest in sports wagering. And so we're hearing from a lot of folks, and everybody has a lot of ideas. And so, you know, things that were previously, you know, sort of decided upon, I think are being relitigated this time, which is taking a little extra time. Folks have had time to think about new ideas that they want to have. We have a new crop of legislators in. 3 of the primary sponsors are no longer serving in the legislature. You know, the Senate has this brand new committee. There's a new president of the Senate. There's a new speaker of the House. So I think there are some bumps in the road, but nothing that can't be overcome. And the governor too has said that he expects sports betting to be legal sooner than later. So I think it's very realistic to think that it will be passed in this General Assembly, so by December of next year. But
okay,
not to throw a wet blanket on all of this. Once it's passed, it's not like, okay, it's passed and you're going to be able to bet on the Super Bowl that afternoon. It's going to take some time for the regulatory agency to create rules, since this is a brand new industry. So I'd say probably 6 months after it's been signed by the governor would be an optimistic time frame.
Oh, wow. So, okay, you used the term earlier, over under. Let me ask you this: over under on months. We're going to set it at 15 and a half, that we'll be able to make a sports bet, a legal sports bet in Ohio. You say over under?
I think that sports betting will be legal in Ohio. The time frame is questionable. You know, I've heard that perhaps it might go into the state budget.
Oh, wow.
And so if that's the case, it would definitely be sooner, and you'd maybe be able to bet on the World Series next year. So, you know, I am not a betting woman on this one, but I am optimistic that we'll be able to get it passed by December of next year.
December of 2022.
of 22.
Oh, wow.
By the
Okay.
time, remember, we started out saying that, the legislation dies if it's not passed,
Mhm.
by then. So I think that, we laid a really good foundation in the previous General Assembly. You've got a lot of folks who didn't know much at all about sports betting. I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
Who didn't know anything about sports betting, previously, and now are better informed around the topic. You have a governor who is saying that he expects it to happen. You have legislative leadership who expects it to happen. So we're doing everything that we can to introduce a good bill that can move quickly and get passed so that folks who are interested in legally sports betting can do so sooner than later.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Well, before we go, I don't want to hold you. Do you have anything else you want to say about sports betting in Ohio, or maybe Bridget Kelly and her platform?
Well, I mean, like I said, I didn't think sports betting was anything that I would be working on in the House. My background is I've worked for a union for hardworking people for my entire career. So we tend to focus on things like economic and social justice. So raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, making sure people have access to their pay statements, trying to make sure that people can live in clean, safe, healthy communities.
Mhm.
But sports betting fits right in with this because we're talking about something that can generate money so that kids and families in the state can have a better life. So it's really been a privilege to be able to work on it. I've learned a ton, and so hopefully we'll be able to get it up and running so that Ohioans can legally sports bet and we'll stop having to cross the borders of our state on all sides.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kelly. I definitely appreciate your time. We had some previous technical difficulties, and you were gracious enough to, work with us to get this message out, and I definitely appreciate that. We'll
It's my pleasure, and we'll be glad to keep you posted as we move along.
absolutely. I'll be in touch about your co-sponsor this time because I want to speak with him as well. So, but
Very good.
but unless you got anything, we'll end it here. Unless you got anything else.
I will look forward to talking throughout this process.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate your time, Ms. Kelly. Take care.
Sure thing. Take good care. Bye.
Bye-bye.